The Ruhr. The Ruhr was Germany's richest economic area and had a big impact on the country's wealth. In 1922, under orders from the Treaty of Versailles, the French took over the Ruhr. This meant that the French and Belgian troops occupied the coal fields of the Ruhr, where many Germans lived and worked, to enforce Germans' payment of reparations to pay for the destruction caused by the war. The Germans living in these areas had to obey every order from the Belgian and French military. This led to riots and strikes as the German people wanted freedom to not take orders, and were told to do so by the Weimar Republic back in Germany. However, repression was a result, and many German people were either imprisoned or expelled, as 150,000 were from the Ruhr for disobeying orders. Violence was also a result, as 132 people were killed in 8 months. Food was also taken by the French and Belgian troops as punishment. Germany no longer received a large income from the Ruhr, affecting the country's economic state massively. The German government had to fork out for German workers on strike or who had been expelled. The Red of the Time Cross, known as the ICRC, sent a mission to find facts in the Ruhr in August 1923 to draw a conclusion on the effects of the population. This was the first time the ICRC had worked in the enemy territory about issues concerning civilians. During the ICRC's research, they visited 13 prisons and places where hostages were being held. Missions such as these continued until summer 1925. However, they didn't supply any direct relief action, but did launch an appeal for assistance in helping those affected by the economic situation. In an attempt to improve the economic situation, Germany printed more and more money, signaling to other countries that they did not have enough money to cover the cost of basic needs. Foreign investors in the German economy withdrew their investments as they were worried about the state of the economy. In 1923, the Weimar Republic nearly collapsed. The crisis began when Germany missed a reparations payment towards the beginning of 1923. This situation spiraled out of control, and once again the German people were unhappy and in financial difficulty. As a result, uprisings occurred throughout the country. The resultant general strike meant that no goods were manufactured, so more money was floating around chasing fewer goods. On top of this, a sudden flood of paper money into the economy occurred, and as we know, the German economy was already weak due to war. These factors are what led to hyperinflation. Prices ran out of control, e.g. a loaf of bread which cost 250 marks in January 1923 had risen to 200,000 million marks in November of the same year. Germany's currency became worthless. There are a lot of amusing stories that emphasize this newfound worthlessness and push of the economy. For example, people would fill their suitcases with money, and one man who left a suitcase of money unattended came back to find the suitcase had been stolen, but the money had been left behind. Some people, however, made fortunes during the crisis. One man borrowed money to buy a herd of cattle, but soon after paid back his loan by selling one cow. People on wages were safe because they renegotiated their wages every day. Those who were the most badly hit seemed to consist of pensioners on fixed incomes and people with savings. One woman sold her house with the intention of using the money to live on. A few weeks later, the money wasn't even enough to buy a loaf of bread. Unsurprisingly, the hardships created by hyperinflation led to many uprisings as groups struggled to take power from the Weimar. A nationalist group called the Black Reichswehr rebelled in Berlin, and the fascist Nazis attempted a putsch, a small revolt against a government, in Munich. Communists took over the governments of Saxony and Thuringia, and also took over the Rhineland and declared it independent. Stresemann was the man who helped Germany escape the grasp of hyperinflation and crisis of economy. His aims were to restore stability and prosperity at home, and restore Germany's position in Europe. To achieve these aims, he was prepared to cooperate with the Allies. In 1923, Stresemann restored the Allies of Germany's confidence by calling off the Ruhr strike and agreeing to resume the reparations payment. He also replaced the old currency, the mark, with the Rentenmark, and created a central bank to control this new currency. Stresemann introduced the Dawes Plan in 1924. This meant reparation repayments were reorganized, the French agreed to withdraw from the Ruhr, and Americans agreed to make loans to Germany foreign loans. In 1925, the Locarno treaties were signed, guaranteeing Germany's western borders as set down in 1919, and in 1926 Germany joined the League of Nations. Finally, Germany signed the Kellogg-Briand Pact in 1928, outlawing war, and the Young Plan in 1929, which led to a reduction in the total amount of reparations. Stresemann's policies resulted in the mark becoming stable, unemployment falling, and extremist parties becoming less popular. Issues with the Weimar Republic. Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution gave the president complete power in times of emergency. This power was abused by the president many times. As well as this, proportional voting led to 28 separate parties in the Reichstag. meaning that it was very difficult to establish a majority vote. Between 1919 and 1933, there were 20 different governments, with the longest lasting only 2 years. German states had too much power and regularly ignored the government. The army was also not fully under government control and failed to support the government on many occasions, such as the cap push in the crisis of 1923. Many government officials, such as judges, were right-wing, therefore meaning that they wanted to destroy the Weimar Republic. Despite 700 people being tried for treason after the cap putsch, only one was actually sentenced. Left-wing rebellions. In January of 1919, 50,000 Spartakists rebelled in Berlin. They were led by Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht. Also in 1919, communist workers' councils seized power all over Germany and Bavaria. After the cap putsch failed in 1920, the Red Army rebelled in the Ruhr. Right-wing terrorism. Many groups of right-winged believers loathed the new government for signing the Treaty of Versailles. One of the most famous examples of right-wing terrorism was in 1920, when a Brigade of Freikorps, a parliamentary organisation made of voluntary fighters led by Dr. Wolfgang Kapp, overthrew Berlin and attempted to bring back the Kaiser. As well as this, nationalist terrorists murdered over 350 politicians in August of 1921. In 1923, French troops invaded the Ruhr after Germany failed to pay reparations. This humiliated the government, causing a strike. The government then paid the workers by printing more money, leading to hyperinflation. On the 1st of October 1923, a group of soldiers by the name of the Black Reichswehr rebelled. The Rhineland then declared independence between 21st and 22nd of October. In Saxony and Thuringia, communists took power.